Hello, Internet and fellow Castlevania fans. You obviously know me, Ted Lag, whatever you want to call me here from Nerd Immersion. And I'm joined by someone that old school fans of the channel who probably haven't seen in like 3 years, maybe?
A million years.
Yeah, Alucardalina. So
Hi.
welcome back.
Glad to be back.
And if you couldn't tell by her name alone, the two of us are very big Castlevania fans. And obviously, one of the big buzz on the internet, and very positive buzz, which is a good sign, the recent Castlevania Netflix series came out. So, rather than sit here or type something up, we decided to do a joint review of the series. So, we're going to go through a bunch of stuff, and then we're going to get into spoilers and actual episode discussion. So we'll warn you ahead of time when we get to some spoilers, and then eventually we're doing full-on spoilers. Look away if you don't want to know what happens. But to start, again, name aside, or actually, just personal history. Like, people may not know you. It's been a little while since you've been around the channel, so we'll kind of let people know who you are and what's going on.
That's such a broad question.
Yeah, I know. I don't have, like, a typical list of questions like I normally do, so.
Like you said, I'm Alucardalina, and I've been playing games for, like, most of my life, so they're kind of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of those has been Castlevania, so I'm feeling I'm a little relevant here, right?
Yeah.
I've also watched a lot of, anime, so I feel like that also plays into this.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just an all-around dork.
Yeah, as obviously, if you've ever watched anything on my channel and all of these things behind me, you know that that's the same situation. But if you're a new person who doesn't do all the other stuff that we do and are just here for the Castlevania review, my name is Ted, and I run the Nerd Immersion channel here. I'm also a huge dork and gamer, tabletop, video game, otherwise. And Alu and I know each other from a guild that we're both still a part of, from Guild Wars 2, so you may have seen us if you were friends or familiar with the Chronicles of Tyria podcast. We both were on that quite often, so I was on it all the time.
I came along later.
Yeah, but you were there till the very end, as well as a couple of Guild Wars 1 Let's Plays and things of that nature. Also, you run Project Tyria. We should probably plug that a little bit.
Yeah, I need to make a post. It's kind of difficult when there isn't a lot of content relevant to my vlog coming out. But I mean, I'm still on the lookout for it.
So why don't you just real quick, just a little blurb, the 10-second speech of what is Project Tyria, so people know if they want to look it up.
So as far as like Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2 goes, Project Tyria is I like to do before and afters of both of the games. So a location that might appear in both of the games, I like to go out and document it, taking screenshots and putting them side by side. So, yeah.
And we'll put a link to her channel in the description below. So, we talked a little bit about it, but how about your history with Castlevania? Because obviously that's relevant. Why do people want to hear us talk about Castlevania? Why? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's one of the first games I can remember playing, honestly. That and, like, Zelda.
Sure.
But, so...
You're talking Castlevania 1 for the NES?
Yes.
Okay, alright, solid.
One of my more favorite ones later on was, Super Castlevania 4.
Sure.
I played that a lot as a kid. I don't know how I did it, because I can't even get through it now.
Yeah, it's funny how that is. You know, you go back and, like, you're like, oh, I beat this game, and, I don't know, we must have either been quicker, or we just had that much more patience because there was nothing else to play, so you just had to play through it.
Yeah. Eventually I kept with the series and stuff. Went back and was able to play some of the games. Oh, I have a cat in front of me. Pardon me.
That's okay. That's a commonplace thing for most of the ladies that play on this channel, so.
That's how she tells me she wants to sit in my lap.
Sure.
Anyway, so I kept up with the games. Later got to play like Dracula X and
sure.
stuff like that, Rondo of Blood. which of course came later because it wasn't readily available.
Unfortunately.
So that was super exciting, and of course I got the remake, the Dracula X Chronicles, and I got the little figurine of that too.
Nice.
But of course, Symphony of the Night. That one I just absolutely fell in love with. Like, Castlevania was always sort of commonplace in my house, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until Symphony that I was just like, this is my favorite series ever.
Yeah, I hear ya. I too started with Castlevania 1 on the NES. I swear to this day that I saw it on like some top-down console thing in like a Denny's when I was like 4 years old. I might be completely making that up, but I swear that that's what it was.
Like, that's bizarre realities that happen, you know?
Yeah, like, I haven't looked it up.
You kind of question it later when you're an adult, right?
And I haven't gone back to look up if that was ever a thing, because I don't want to prove myself wrong. So it's always going to be my memory of Castlevania till I find out, someone tells me otherwise, I'm sure, in a comment on this video. But what really kind of got me again further into that was when I had my NES. My grandmother didn't know, she wanted to get me games for the NES, and she didn't know, she bought me what she thought were 2 games, but they were VHS tapes that were strategy guides, because that's how things rolled back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it was
I used to have strategy guides on VHS as well.
Yeah, it was each were 4 NES games, and the one had Castlevania. So I didn't actually own any of the 8 games on the 2 tapes. So I just watched the tapes, and like, because it was overly dramatic. Like, the narrator was like, and duck under the third, and like he was all like, you know, make sure you whip the hunchback, or like, and like he's going through and all these like overly dramatizing, like someone playing Castlevania. So obviously I was always more interested in it. And then like I kind of fell out of Castlevania. Hadn't really, like, knew it existed, didn't really play it much. I didn't have a PlayStation. I had an N64, so I had Castlevania 64, which we could talk about for a long time. But like whatever, that like reinvigorated me, and I started finding like Castlevania, like old school, like GeoCities Castlevania websites that I would like go on and like read through. Like the Castlevania dungeon was like my place that I would go. Yeah, and I would
to like get sprites off of there and print it on the printer and print them out and stuff.
And I started getting into like downloading fan made Castlevania games. Like there was one made with RPG Maker that I was a big fan of. And then that just continued onward, and I got like a bigger and bigger fan of Castlevania. And then that sort of was like my, like, oh, let me deal with like vampires, and led to a bunch of other, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and other things, all from Castlevania. And then eventually, much later than most people, I played Symphony of the Night, and then basically everything that it dictated afterwards was like every 2D Castlevania game ever. After that, everything for handhelds and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, personal history with Castlevania. So, I'm sure, as you know, we've all been hearing about, like, there's gonna be a Castlevania movie. That was, like, a thing in, like, 2004. And it's like, it's gonna happen, it's not gonna happen, it's gonna be a live-action movie. Is it Yui Bowl? Is it Wes Anderson? Who's gonna make it? I don't know. In that era of, like, really bad video games, like Alone in the Dark, and, like, video game movies that people were, like, in Doom and the beginning of Resident Evil movies, when people were like, oh, they could make a video, it'll be good, and then everybody was like, oh no, don't make a video game movie, please. And then like 2009, I think the 2009 TV series Castlevania still has an entry on IMDb, even though there is zero information for it, because it never went anywhere. So obviously, skepticism that this was even going to happen, because we only heard about this series like 2 months ago, and then all of a sudden it's here.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts when you heard there was going to be a Castlevania series ahead of time? What did you like? What were your anticipation going into this?
Like the one on Netflix, or like the original?
No, the one that we're actually going to review here, the Netflix series.
I mean, I'm a little critical of a lot of Castlevania things that are coming out these days.
Okay, fair.
So, like, I was worried, expecting the worst but hoping for the best is, I think, the correct use here.
Sure. And what did you think about? I was basically the same way. Like, if it ever actually happens, I hope that it's good, but I'm not holding my breath. Because honestly, until like the first trailer, I didn't know that it was gonna be animated. I thought it was gonna be another like attempt at a live action Castlevania.
Yeah. I was thinking that as well because there was that live action fan made series, and I was like, oh man, did they contact these people? Are they gonna like actually do the thing?
Yeah, and we heard like like Nintendo was gonna start doing series maybe, and then that never went anywhere for like Zelda.
Yeah, I was going to bring Zelda up specifically. It's just like Netflix and stuff says they're going to do a lot of things.
Right, exactly.
And then they just never happen. So.
Yeah. And what did you... I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, but what do you think about a series that it was going to be a series versus just like a movie?
I think that if they have the money for it, a series is always the better way to go. Because
Agreed.
then you can figure out your pacing a lot better for something like a video game.
Sure. Yeah. Then there's a lot of lore, and obviously, people are very critical of these kind of things. So animated versus live action. I mean, I personally think animated is the way to go because you don't have to worry about like CGI effects looking just god awful fake.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree.
And then we touched on that too, like Netflix. I mean, I guess that's probably the best route to go, really, because I don't know what other like outlet they could have done to make this series.
Yeah, I feel like I'm glad it's Netflix because I don't have like cable or
Sure.
anything.
Yeah.
I'd have to like walk downstairs into like a club room for my apartment complex to watch anything.
Sure.
But for Netflix, I can just watch it right here at my computer anytime I want to. So,
Sure.
It's pretty easy to actually access for me. So.
All right. So again, no spoilers yet, but just your overall general thoughts on the series. Things you liked, things you didn't like. I know that's kind of hard without giving out spoilers, but like, let's keep it high level.
I mean, I know,
I'm sorry.
I have a lot of emotions here.
All right. Well, did you like it?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I thought that while it was maybe a little cliche,
Okay.
sometimes a little too over the top, it was still fun to watch.
Okay.
So I don't regret it. I don't regret it one bit, and I look forward to watching more.
Okay. Good. High-level, spoiler-free answer. I agree. I did like it. Maybe, and because there wasn't so much hype, this wasn't something we'd heard about for years, or even an extended period of months, it couldn't fall victim to a lot of things like a Duke Nukem Forever, or in my opinion, a Diablo 3, where there's so much hype and anticipation to play it, or to see it, and then, like, it can't ever live up to the hype. So because it was just like, hey, this is gonna happen, and then, like, it's in your face, it's here.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. And maybe it's also, we're all so jaded that we don't think anything video game adapted to TV or the screen is gonna be good. So when it's like, even if it's like mediocre at best, which I'm not saying Castlevania is, but even if it is, we're like, oh my god, this is amazing!
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked it. I had like some gripes, and they're more plot related, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's talk animation style. What did you think about the animation style for this?
Okay, so I had some problems with the actual execution of it. The style I actually like. It kind of reminds me of mix between like typical Vampire Hunter D.
I was gonna say that. Yep.
Even like Trigun-esque, but also like a mix of the Boondocks.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, and I did think it did, when I started watching it, it definitely evoked a Vampire Hunter D vibe to me, and I thought that was a really good call, and also a call back, because it's often been stated, and I don't know if it's ever been clarified, and you may be able to answer this, that the idea of the main series hero of Castlevania wielding a whip is because of the female character from Vampire Hunter D. And she in the very beginning has the whip and like goes to fight him, and like that imagery inspired when Castlevania was created to give the main character a whip, and that I don't know if that was ever founded, but I thought that kind of was a nice synergy there.
I honestly have no clue. I don't even know how old Vampire Hunter D is, but I think that's the first way to find out.
Yeah, I'm gonna Google that right now while we're talking, but I'm pretty sure it came. Because I think Vampire Hunter D is it's old.
Yeah.
So, and my other kind of nitpick, 1983. So that would have been a year before the launch, or 2 years really before the launch of the NES console period. So.
Yeah, so it's very possible then.
And yeah, I get your point, and and it was a 4-episode miniseries with it had obviously some funding, and now it has more, and we'll talk about that more later. But when people weren't the main focus, or there wasn't breathing animated, they were.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not an uncommon anime thing, but they were just like a statue until they needed to act, and then they started moving. And it's save frames where you can, and at least we didn't have newer anime filler frames where it's the same thing over and over again because it saves on animation. But
I have some episode by episode animation complaints.
Okay.
So I can either say them now or I can say them later.
We'll call back to those when we get to the episodes. Yeah. So. We're going to start talking high-level spoilers now, because we want to talk about the voice acting, so obviously we need to talk about the characters, so that'll let you know who's in it, so that will be a little bit of a spoiler. And then we're going to touch on briefly show-to-game lore, which we'll then go further into in the episode synopsis. So, I'll go through, again, look away if you don't want spoilers, the voice actors and their characters. So we have Richard Armitage is Trevor Belmont. If the name might sound familiar to you, he was Thorin in the Hobbit movies, and he's been in a bunch of other long-running shows, Robin Hood, MI5, Hannibal. James Callis plays Alucard of Eureka and Battlestar Galactica fame. Alejandra Reynoso is Sypha. The only thing I really know her from is she's Flora in basically all of the more recent Winx Club iterations, so that's what she's from. Graham McTavish.
Name it forever.
Yeah. Graham McTavish was Dracula. He played Dwalin in the Hobbit movies. He's also in Preacher and Outlander. Tony Amendola played the Elder. He has been in Once Upon a Time, continuing a bunch of CSIs. Matt Frewer is the Bishop. Most people will probably know him as Max Headroom, but also was in Orphan Black, Eureka, and played the voice of Jackal in the Gargoyle series. And then lastly is Emily Swallow, who plays Lisa Tepes, was in Supernatural, The Mentalist, and Southland. So that's the people. Now let's talk about what you thought about the voice acting itself.
I obviously have a preference that they would have gotten the original
Sure,
voice
of course.
actors.
Of course.
that aside, I think I pretty much liked everyone, except I don't think that Lisa's voice fit her.
Okay, I could agree with that.
She's very kind and caring, sort of motherly figure, and it sounded more like, I don't know, someone who's going off in a jungle.
Yeah, she did seem more of a tough. Yeah, she's a much tougher chick than my imagery of Lisa in my head. I did like I think specifically the Bishop voice acting was great, because I hated him, and it just it just dripping with just this pompousness, and I thought that came across very well in the voice acting. And regardless of personality, which we'll talk about more in the episodes, and I liked Trevor a lot. I thought the voice acting was done very well.
I actually like his voice actor, so
yeah.
for him. It fits. Like there, as far as voice acting goes, though, there are some points where it's been really bad.
Sure.
Like,
or is that a specific episodic thing you want to talk about?
There is a specific episode, but it doesn't really matter because I don't think anybody will remember this unless everyone is as anal about it as I am.
All right, well, let's hear it then. We'll get to it now.
There was a point in, let's see, which episode? It was episode 4, I think, that there was this guy, and it's like, even his character looks like he's looking down to read the script. And he just talks so one-lined, and it's just like, this character literally looks like he's reading the script too. So,
yeah. We'll have to
work on the villagers a bit.
Yeah, and I think they did put a lot, like we said, a lot more focus in the main characters, because we have to kind of establish this universe, really, as this world that we can continue to have more.
Yeah.
All right, so the characters. Obviously, this is not a spoiler. This is heavily based on Castlevania 3. So if you're not familiar, this is the last Castlevania iteration on the original Nintendo. Highly regarded as one of the best Castlevanias in the original 2D side-scroller before we got to the kind of Metroidvania style of Symphony of the Night. I think before we don't go too much into this, but clearly the best choice for the game to build the series on. I think some of the most memorable characters. Good choice. What do you think of the characters in this show?
Okay, so why is everyone so sassy? Literally every character is sassy.
Yeah, they are. The only one who's not is the Elder. He's the only really not sassy guy, because he's just like your typical, I'm the old man who will give you exposition. And that's what he does.
Might as well be the oarsman, right?
Yeah.
I'll take you to where you need.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's true. Even the random drunk townsfolk are a little bit, or the drunk townsfolk in the bar are sassy. Everybody's just, Transylvania is a sassy place, I guess. Sass aside, what do you think about the characters?
I feel like Sypha is probably the strongest written character.
I agree.
Which is kind of surprising with how a lot of people treat female characters,
Sure.
But Trevor, he seems really cool at first. He seems like really cool at first. But later on, it kind of seems like he's one note.
Okay.
So I'm waiting to see him evolve. 4 episodes I don't think is quite enough. But I'm just waiting to see that.
Okay.
Dracula, I think he is a lot more developed than he actually is in any of the Castlevania games ever. You can relate to this man now. It's not just mindless killing, so...
Yeah, and it's not like...
I'm so proud that they did that. I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah, and you don't have to dig through old GeoCities websites and instruction manuals in the game to get your lore for Dracula. Because we'll talk about this, but it's very true to the Castlevania lore, this adaptation. We gotta ask, Alucardalina, what do you think of Alucard as a character?
He's sassy too.
True.
Okay, so one of my main complaints is when I saw the trailer, and I was just like, oh man, they put Alucard in here. Obviously they put Alucard in here.
Sure, of course.
They put Alucard in here. Is he going to be angsty enough?
Yeah.
Because I love that melancholy, angsty Alucard from, Symphony of the Night, you know?
Sure, yep.
The Alucard that's just like, oh man, I killed my father, I can't go on anymore, you know? And he's done that twice.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yep.
I was waiting for that, and then we come out and see this really sassy Alucard, and then he gets angsty by the end of the episode, and I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Angsty Alucard.
Lisa, we kind of already talked about. The character, the voice acting aside, I think the character did a very good job of. She also sassy, but like a woman empowered. Like again, we'll talk about it when we get into the episode. But she's not afraid of anything. And like I said, the bishop is just the character you hate, and you are designed, and he's the character you love to hate because he's the worst.
He really is.
And then, the elder guy, like I said, he's the quintessential old man who's there to provide sage advice. Alright, again, I talked on it briefly, but when we go through the episodes in just a bit, we'll touch on it. But this show, I was shocked, I'm not going to say it's like, frame for frame for the story, but it is the most faithful adaptation of a video game to any other media that I've ever seen. This story, as someone who, again, spent years scrolling through old Castlevania things to read every lore about every game, this is by far, I was blown away by how much it follows the actual established storyline. What are your thoughts?
There are a few things that, as far as the game goes, it's kind of twisting around. It just gets a little, just every so often, a few things like meeting Sypha before Grant. But I guess you could do that in the game,
Sure.
Meeting them before the castle, mainly, that sort of deal. But the actual lore part itself. Yeah, I'm amazingly impressed. It seems pretty solid, and I think it's doing a lot better of tying it in together.
I agree.
Than the actual games do. Because you can't really get that information like you were saying. You have to go look through the booklets and stuff, and go read
the fact
old
that
websites.
It goes 1, 2, 3. 3 comes first, but 4 is actually 1 remade. Then comes 2. So, if you try to follow the chronological timeline, it's not at all. It can't just be 1, 2, 3, 4 is the order that they go. And then there's ones that they're like, this game exists, but remove it from the canon timeline. It's not part of it.
Yeah, it's like there are several different timelines at this point. There's we're going with this one now, and we've retconned at least 3 of these different timelines.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Sonia Belmont, progenitor of the race, you cool, empowered female, get out of here. We're done with you. Your game on the Dreamcast was canceled, so you don't get to be part of the story. And now we're going to go with this Lord of Shadows one. And I don't know if you know this, but Lord of Shadows series, the reason they differed from the official timeline is they didn't like that the timeline put them in a box for when they could set the game because of the story. So
yeah, I also hear that Lord of Shadows wasn't originally going to be a Castlevania game in the first place, so they were just like, you know what, let's just redo everything.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked high level. We are now going to go into the episode by episode synopsis. So if you want to have no spoilers that you didn't already get, go away now and come back after you watch the show. Alright, so episode 1, Castlevania. This is our background episode, and as you stated, probably the most in viewable form, basically. We have backstory for Dracula, which I would say for a lot of Castlevania players that don't do that digging and aren't following the Lords of Shadows timeline, this is going to be probably brand new to them.
Yeah. Dracula was always the sort of Gary Stu villain.
Sure.
If you didn't read into it, it was just kind of I'm angry, so I'm gonna kill people, or I'm a vampire, so I'm gonna kill people, and I'm gonna commit massacres because I'm angry and a vampire.
Yep.
And that's what I do.
Yeah, and I do like that, again, it is tied to the way the story is written, that it is the same Vlad, the Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler of real-world existence, which is part of the Castlevania kind of lore, is that character existed, and then through, like, deals with the devil to get power to defeat his enemies, became this great, powerful vampire, Dracula. So, in this episode, we start off meeting Lisa, who comes in and goes into this castle and says, like, I want to heal people, I want to be a doctor, and I heard you have, like, untold knowledge. And, like, then it's just like, it's Dracula. Like, there's no, like, deception, he's something, no, it's just like, he's here, and she just is like, nope, I don't want any of your shit, I want my medicine, I want the knowledge. And he's just like, I think he's taken aback by how bold she is, and he's like, did you, garlic, and she's like, I had some roasted garlic for lunch, it's all I had. And he was like,
sorry if that offends you.
yeah, it's like, was that wrong? And this sets up Lisa's character, I think, very strongly at the start of the game, start of the show.
Yeah, one of my more favorite things about that scene was when he's like, so what can you give me in return? She was like, you can get out of this house.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I'll teach you to be like a human again, or walk among them, and, also try to get you to not put them on sticks anymore.
Yeah.
Again, a callback to Vlad the Impaler, and he's like, I haven't done that in a long time. And they also do reference there that Castlevania can move. He says that this whole castle is a traveling machine. And we do see that it does seem more mechanical than I would, in my interpretation, and from what we see in the games, it is much more gears and, like, alchemical and, like, Frankenstein-y with its, like,
I can
Tesla coils and stuff.
I can kind of understand it, though. One of the main things for the castle has always been the clock tower.
Sure, agreed.
There have been way too many gears to just be powering a clock,
That's true. I never thought of it that way. And there is a lot of mechanical stuff. In some of the games, we do see, like, a literal Frankenstein.
Yep,
so
even in this game.
True. Yep.
Dracula's curse, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
We have the alchemy labs.
Also
as
true.
Well, and like symphony.
Yep. And
It's a very scientific castle, actually.
Yeah, you don't think it when you play Castlevania 1 and you're whipping candles. You don't really think clearly 1920s Tesla technology.
Well, I mean, you're sitting there eating wall meat, so.
Oh, I guess that's also. I guess, maybe it's all just a grand delusion.
Maybe we're not the brightest.
Yeah. Oh man, pork chop. Yes. So, all right. So we get introduced to them, and then we basically get a time jump to 8 years later. And it's like, again, it just goes balls to the wall. Like, oh, Lisa's getting burned at the stake now. Like, what? And I will say, I think that this show, as a general rule, does a good job of doing exposition and telling you what's going on without actually making it feel like they're just telling you what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is impressive, because sometimes... Yeah, exactly. Which sometimes, in certain shows and games, it's like, Deckard Cain, shut up, I don't care what you have to say anymore. I don't want to stay a while and listen, I just want to play the game. And yeah, they just kind of go, and again, this is also the Catholic Church. It is not like a made-up church. It's not like the prayer book and the firebomb, like it's holy water in the Bible. Like, this is the Catholic Church. And like the bishop and the archbishop, and they're doing what they do, hunting witches, burning them at the stake to purify them. And this is our first introduction to the bishop character. Thoughts?
They laid it on pretty thickly, didn't they?
A little bit.
But that's kind of his character, I suppose. They really want you to hate him.
So bad,
it's
yeah.
like like the slimiest person ever. Like,
even to the point where, like, if you die, you would go to heaven, and the one, like, townsfolk is like, I guess that's probably the best thing for you priests, right? You go to heaven and you do sit at God's table. And he was just like, no, I have no interest in that. There's so much evil that can be burnt from the lands here in the flesh if only I were to have all the time in the world, or something like that. Yeah, and it's like, whoa, pump the brakes, dude. Like,
this is a character that they're not even trying to pretend that he has good in him.
Sure.
Like, you know that he knows he's not doing exactly the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, kind of into the next episodes, it's just kind of, it shows that he's convincing himself.
Sure.
Slowly, that this has to be the right thing,
mm-hmm.
even though he obviously knows it isn't.
Yeah.
Everyone else knows it isn't.
Yeah, there is definitely a, and again, it's typical, you know, ye olde witch hunt, where, like, everybody in the town is around gathering to watch the witch burn at the stake. And, there's a lot of, I guess, religious fanaticism in that, like, he feels justified in what he's doing because he feels he's doing God's work. And we do see Lisa, like, starting to, you know, succumb to the heat, and she screams out and calls out to the night, like, don't hurt them, it's not their fault, they don't understand. And
do them no harm.
Yeah, exactly.
For theirs is a hard lot.
Yes, yes. So, as we know, calling out to Dracula. And then we cut to Dracula just walking like a peasant down the street towards a house, which is burnt, destroyed, and there's an old woman there who basically is like, oh, he's like, what happened? And he basically says she says the church came, they took her, trying her as a witch. And he's like, where are they keeping her? And then the woman's like, she's already dead.
Yeah. And
probably my favorite Easter egg of this whole series is Dracula cries bloody tears. And I was like, I lost my shit, because I was like, oh my god, bloody tears. And if you guys don't know, this is one of the more famous of, I would say, I'll argue probably the two most famous Castlevania tracks are Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears. And he cries bloody tears, and like I feel like every big Castlevania fan out there got like goosebumps at that moment. They're like, I see what you did there.
It's like, oh, that's how they're doing the thing. They can't put the music in here, but they're doing the thing.
And and then basically he becomes a tornado of fire, which, sure, I guess.
I guess that's one of his powers, is becoming fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like fire.
Yeah.
In general.
And
pillars of fire and light and stuff, but not like holy light. Like, it has to be hellfire. So
yeah, and he is like, get out of here, this is my last favor to her, blah blah blah. And he like appears after she's done and gone in the flames at the stake, and is just like, basically like, y'all are fucked, I'm gonna kill you all because you killed my wife. And then the bishop again, like, no fear. You're Satan is a liar, get out of here. And then he's like, you have 1 year to remove yourself, every like speck of your existence on this land, or I will destroy you all.
That, and he basically says he's doing a kindness, as far as like what he thinks is a kindness, because he's just like, take this time to spend with your family, to make amends with your God, etc. And it's like, he's actually trying to be nice, even if it's not like in the nicest way.
Yeah, and that, I feel like, again, is a kind of in honor of Lisa to kind of do what she would want. Well, I mean, she wouldn't want him to kill anybody, but he's like, homie, don't play that game. I'll give you guys a year, but leave this land and take everything with you. Like, this is your one chance. 1 year. He says that like a bunch. So what do? We jump cut a year, and everybody's still there. and the Archbishop, who has the biggest, like, double chin I've ever seen, and he's being, like, carried out on, like, a palanquin, and he's just like, "We're here again, here, the devil is a liar."
You sound just like him.
You know, it's been 1 year. He says that he would smite the evil... Oh, wait, I lied. I forgot about Dracula's piece. We'll cut back. Because he's, like, in Castlevania, in the castle, talking about raising an army in a year. As many armies from, like, the hells that he can raise. And then I'll let you take it, because obviously this is a big part here for you. Somebody appears at the door.
So Alucard and his angsty self's just like, I'm not gonna let you do that, because, like, Mom was just like, no, and I've got to obey Mom, because I love Mom too. But
Sure.
I love you, so I'm not gonna hurt you.
And then his Dracula's just like, yeah, whatever. Wah! And then there's like a sword slash, and then it cuts to black.
Try to stop me.
Yeah, and then,
Speaking of Alucard.
Sure.
I was fully expecting to have seen any sort of semblance of him in that crowd while Lisa was being burned.
Yeah, that's a little shocking.
Canonically, he was supposed to be there.
Correct. Yeah. And again...
and that's why he has nightmares about it, so...
Right. And to your point, to talk about the lore real quick before we move on with the story, that all happens. Dracula he falls in love with Lisa, a human woman. She... teaches him to be kind and is a doctor, and she gives birth to their son, a half-human, half-vampire in Alucard. And yeah, basically everything that happens, the people in the town that she lives in, was it Wallachia, I guess is what they're calling it now? I've heard it pronounced a million different ways. I think the W is technically supposed to be a V because we're in Romania, but it's whatever. If you go with the Castlevania 64, it's Wallachia, because they actually read you the intro. But, yeah, she gets tried as a witch, and this drives Dracula mad with, angst and pain, and then he goes to become the Dracula we know, who is causing all of these horrible summoning demons and monsters and things to attack the land.
Yeah.
So, again, that part of the story, like, spot on.
Yeah, like, they even went as far as to give him the black hair of, like, Matthias.
Yep.
That sort of style. He was very Matthias-looking, which I don't know if they just did that on accident or on purpose, but I'm gonna assume it's on purpose, so it's paying tribute to,
Yes.
to that sort of that timeline as well. So,
and to your point that Alucard sees Lisa die, but he, if I recall, is much younger at that point when that happens, or is he? I forget. So, like, because if you look at it now, he could have stopped it. Like, he's an adult. He could have stopped that from happening. As far as I can tell, there's no reason that we know of that he shouldn't have stopped it. Or attempted to stop it, really.
I think that was Lisa's command.
Probably.
Symphony. Because he approaches and she's like, Alucard, no. Well, actually, she says, Alucard, no.
Yes, yeah. I actually thought we were going to see him much younger, and then, like, in the castle.
Really quickly.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be... We were going to see him younger, and then there was going to be another... Like, he said 1 year, but I thought there was going to be a much longer time jump, and then we were going to get him as an adult. But yeah, they do their little showdown, and now it's 1 year later. Fat Archbishop is like, the devil is a liar, he stood here and said we would be destroyed. And, like, it's middle of the day, and the clouds just, like, it starts becoming night, and I'm like, why are you... Like, and he's still pontificating about how this wasn't gonna... He said it was gonna... I'm like, this is not normal. But everybody else in the audience realized that this isn't normal.
Bragging, too.
Yeah, like, we did the God's work, and this is blah, blah, blah. And then, basically, it starts raining blood. Very thematic. And then it starts raining weird, naked mole rat baby bat things that hit the ground, because they only show... Like, That's all they show, though. Like, they show these things falling.
Like organs at first.
Yeah, and then you look at the ground, and it's like this, like a chest burster alien winged bat thing, but it's dead. And I don't know what the point of that was, because they're just there, and then they're not there anymore. And like we don't like it's like I thought maybe at first they grew, right, like into the creatures that will be there, but no, they just do that. So that happens.
Also this part as well. There was a reference symphony there. When it starts raining, and it shows the scene with the fountain, and the fountain starts turning into blood. It's like that's Orlox's lair.
Yes, okay. Good. I didn't even catch that. And then like the glass shatters, like, and then Castlevania like erupts from like the church. Are you laughing at my sound effects?
I love them.
Oh, okay, so Castlevania erupts from the church, but the glass shattering and breaking impales the archbishop. He dies. Like, right there, basically. And then Dracula appears and basically says, you know, is he in fire again? I think he's in... It's regardless of what he appears in.
Yeah.
He says, basically, I told you had 1 year, and here you are celebrating my wife's death. I warned you, basically. Now I will wipe your stain from this town, or whatever. And it's in Targa Vista is the town they're in, because that's important. And then, basically, from inside the castle comes thousands of these bat creatures, which I'm guessing are like the Gaibon creature, because they're like a humanoid bat creature.
Or lesser demons, somewhat.
And they shoot fire out of their mouths. They shoot fireballs. Yeah. So it's like not a traditional bat. But they... Yeah. And this is where what we heard in advance of the show of being R-rated as fuck, which is a quote how they described Castlevania, is absolutely true. Because it just, like... You know, like, sad, foreboding, and it is just, like, gore central now, man. Entrails are flying everywhere, people are getting messed up, and... Yeah, he holds true to what he said. I'm gonna wipe you guys off the map. And he does that. Like, without prejudice. Yeah. What'd you think of that scene?
I feel like they were a little too much on the gore cringe factor. Make it seem a little too edgy. It kind of seems a little cheap. I wish that they'd do it in a more classy way. I don't want them to get rid of it. Just they seem to want to try and make people like force you. They force it on you. You know? I
do know. So
it could be enjoyable, but it just felt cheap instead to me.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, I think it was to prove a point that this is not like a kid's show, you know. This is an adult series. We're gonna deal with adult things. Here's some bloody entrails flopping all over the place. And then Dracula becomes a vision of like ravens, I think, and he basically tells the demons to scour the land, and, like, head off into the countryside, and just like, we're taking people out. Like, I'm gonna kill them all.
Not just in this town, everywhere.
Right, which I feel like maybe a little bit of a, like, alright. Because that was one thing that Alucard told him, is just like, if you're, like, kill the guy who did it. Like, don't go on a genocide. So he takes out this town, but it's like, okay. Like, is it... I mean, I get it, you're hurting, but, like, go kill everybody. Like, go to all the... through the country and murder everyone. So that's what the demons start doing. And then... then we get a 1 year time jump. Or no, no, we don't. No, we already had the 1 year time jump. My mistake.
It's been a bit of time, though.
Yes. And we find ourselves in another small town, not too far away. And we see a guy. There's a weird conversation going on in a bar with a bunch of drunk people.
This was the part especially. It was just like boondocks.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And it's no ways around it. It is a big conversation about bestiality. That is what it is all about.
Yeah. Well, it's like one of the most quoted scenes that I've seen from the show. It's like everyone is just quoting, "Hit him with a shovel."
Hit him with a shovel. Yeah. We meet some townsfolk that are talking about how one guy has a sheep, and some other guy was banging out his sheep, so he hit him with a shovel. And like, this is like a multiple line conversation all about. So I hit him with my shovel.
Scene.
And then like joking bartender and like, let's have another round. And then some guy comes running in and says like, the hordes have been seen. They're coming this way. And then they're like, oh, do you think they'll pass us over? I don't know. And then they call it back to did you see any good like sheep on the way here? Which was like a random, like, okay.
Yeah.
And then
calm down, guys.
Shovel Man goes on his tirade about how it's all the royal, like the rich houses' fault. You know,
yeah.
All of these big houses, they have everything. We do all the work. They have nothing. So we've got a nice socio-economical schism in the community. And then he pulls out Belmont. Like, he throws it out there, like the Belmonts. They're famous house, clan Belmont. You know, it's like them. And then you see drunk guy in the corner is like, shit. And then it's like, okay, we figured it out. Also, this is an anime style thing, so like you're clearly better dressed and have more unique clothing. You're the main character. We figured it out. And then
very fancy cloak.
Yes, the fur-lined, upper cloak. And then he wants to get out of there. We find out, and he's like, "I need a beer." And then the guy sees his house symbol on his chest, and then like, they get into a conversation. He's like, "You're a Belmont. You're the worst. Let's get him. Let's teach him a lesson." And then it turns into a bar fight. And at one point, I do think Trevor, he says, "What's your name?" And he says Jesus of Nazareth as like what his name is, and I was like, "You really are just the sass master."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I have a short sword and a whip." And then they get into a big fight, and he's like, "You don't have your shovel," and he punches him in the face. And they kick him in the nuts a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And to the point where Trevor's like, "Will you please leave my testicles alone?" But the shovel maniac there makes a point and says, "The Belmonts deal with black magic. Now black magic's running the country." Basically implying what we basically learned kind of through this scene and a little bit later, that the Belmonts were kicked out of their ancestral home. We learned that Trevor is the last son of the Belmont house, and they were basically excommunicated by the church. Yeah. And I think the very first time we ever hear about this in the game is literally the intro scrolling text from Castlevania 1. Says like, they scared the townsfolk, so they like nobody really liked them because they deal with monsters, which gets over time misinterpreted to mean like they deal with monsters, not like they deal with monsters.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've been talking for a while. Give me some more feedback on the bar scene here.
My favorite part was the ending of it.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's just like, "I have never lost a battle to man nor beast," and the next scene is him getting kicked out.
Yep. And he like stumbles off towards. They do say that this city of Greshit, I think, is called.
They pronounce it two different ways.
Okay.
And
yes.
one of them is Greshit, and the other one is Grayshit.
Yes. That town. They do allude to the fact that like they're under siege by Dracula's minions. Then basically that's the episode of episode 1, right? Yeah. Do you have any other comments on episode 1?
I felt like in this episode, I mean, I don't think it would have sold me completely to continue watching the series because the writing and the voice acting felt a little stiff to me.
Okay.
I can understand that a first episode is often going to be like that. So, if the first episode stops you, continue watching. You'll have more fun later.
Yeah, it a lot of people I've heard said it was interesting to do like the first episode all about Dracula and not have like a Belmont in the whole episode in a Castlevania series. But I think it was necessary. I think we needed that backstory to one, figure out what's going on with Dracula, why he's attacking people, because again, to your point from before, if you don't have that, then he's just a mindless jerk who just kills people because he wants to kill people. So we get that out of the way. Then we deal with episode number 2, and we are heading to that same town of Greshit, or Greshit, or however you choose to pronounce it.
Yeah, I'm gonna pronounce it Greshit.
Okay, me too. So, why don't you walk us through the beginning of episode 2 here?
Okay, so I'm gonna do the funny take on it first.
Okay.
Is that the beginning of the first episode is Belmont, 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 Belmont. It's like how many times can you say Belmont in like 10 minutes?
Fair. I agree. So, alright, that's the funny take on it.
Yes. So we join up with Trevor again, and we find that he's sleeping outside of Greshit. And Greshit is just surrounded by really tall Attack on Titan-esque walls. So, you know, they've obviously tried to wall themselves off from, like, the enemies and stuff. But as he sneaks into the town, and he has to sneak in because he's not supposed to be there, obviously.
Crawls through a sewer.
He sees that the streets, through the sewer, and he's just sassy the entire time.
Yep.
Tell someone where you're gonna use the restroom.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And he finally gets out on the streets, and it's clear that these monsters come every night and just kill a ton of people. I think there was a scene too where
they show like the woman screaming,
took the baby.
Yeah, like at her, like next to her in bed, and like the cradle that's empty with no baby in it.
Yeah. So like they're just doing constant siege on this town. They're not killing everyone off like immediately, like at the same time. They're just coming back and making things worse and worse. And it's just apparently normal to see everything covered in blood and guts and intestines and throwing
like
bodies into the like.
They were like on the spikes, like entrails were like on like the defensive spikes around
like
the city,
decorating
like a garland.
And everything. Yeah, like it looks very festive. And so he gets into town and sees all this stuff, and he does not seem fazed by it, like at all. And I think this is where he starts talking to the townspeople, right?
Yeah, he wants to buy some food, and he buys like from this lady, and he's asking like what's going on, and he said just passing through, and basically she says like, we've got speakers in the city, and that's all gonna get handled. And then that like sparks him like going to booth and having a conversation, trying to gather information about what's going on in that city. And basically what we gather from this group of people is there's these things called speakers, which we don't really know what they are at this point. We assume they're a group of people. And they're in the city, and there's very mixed feelings on them. A lot of people seem to think that they're the cause of all of the problems of everything attacking the city, and that needs to be removed. Some people are like, I don't really think it's their fault. Then like other people are like, it's the Belmont's fault, and like it's all over the place. But I think somebody tells them that it's the bishop says this, that he said that if they take care of the speakers, that all our problems are going to go away.
Yeah, so basically what the gist of it is like, nobody's blaming the church.
Correct.
They've already got that covered so that they're not being blamed.
Mm-hmm. And we cut to Trevor walking down an alleyway where he sees two priests basically assaulting an old man. Or going to, like, tell him, like, he's in a purple kind of robe thing. And he basically says, oh, you guys are going to be dealt with at sundown. And Trevor's like, just walk away, just don't deal with this, you don't need any trouble, just move on. And he, like, doesn't do it. And the old, like, one of the, like, the bearded priest pulls out, like, this club, and he's gonna basically, cudgel this old man. And then you see, like, Trevor resignedly, he reaches for his whip, and he whips the staff out of the guy's hand, along with his finger. And he basically says something along the lines of, like, I was just trying to grab it from your hand, how's your finger? And the guy's like, what finger?
See, this is a more classy take on gore that I'm talking about. It's enjoyable.
Okay, alright. So less, like, blood and entrails everywhere, just a removed finger.
It just, as long as it feels like it's needed. Like, the town covered in blood and entrails, I felt like that was necessary. Sure. Yeah, it made sense earlier, it just...
Didn't have to be at that level.
Yeah.
We could have cut away when we saw people getting killed that way. We didn't need to see that guy, like, split in half in the air and, like, his, like, intestines spiraling out.
Like, people are pulling their intestines out.
Oh god, yeah.
So this is a better change, I think.
Okay. And then we see the other bald priest, like, pull out this dagger, which Trevor calls a thieves' knife, but he's, like, way skilled with it, and he's like, typical anime style, and, like, runs at Trevor, who is, like, now he's the badass guy, who's just like, whoop, whoop, and he, like, trips him up and does a couple of, like, fancy moves and uses the whip. And at one point the guy's like, I may be a little rusty, but I'm stone cold sober. Because I feel like that line wasn't necessary, but alright. And then basically he whips out at this guy and whips his eyeball out of his socket. Mm-hmm. Like, how is that even
just kind of lands somewhere.
And it's just like on the wall, and it's just like hanging there. And he's like, get out of here. Don't ever assault this man or his people again. I don't want to see you anymore. And he basically takes the old man back to his house, where we find a whole group of these people all wearing the same robes, which we then learn these are the speakers. Now, I don't remember if this was established for Sypha's backstory in Castlevania 3. Are the speakers a thing, or is that just like something they took liberty with? Which is fine if they did, but I don't know.
I don't recall it either. Like, I can see where it might come in, but I mean, you'd have to have like a lot of back reading on that to be able to find out, I think. But I don't remember it myself, so I'm gonna err on the side of no.
Okay. And then there's a group of people, huddled, quiet people. There's the elder, which is this old man we've talked about, and then there's like upstart guy who's like, we gotta deal with all these things, and he's like, no, we don't gotta deal with all these. They have the young and old thing, but what I thought was different was that the young people don't want to deal in violence. The young people think that words will speak louder than actions, which I thought was an interesting twist. Like,
yeah.
And then,
Wise
Trevor...
men sort of thing.
Trevor's, like, but wistful the whole time. Yeah, I guess why... Yeah. And Trevor's like, oh, well, I don't think that's going to work here. We look out the window away from everybody. And we get some backstory in that Trevor's father or grandfather had once fought with a speaker, and this is the point where we learn that speakers are historians and keepers of knowledge, but they're called speakers because they only keep it in their heads and speak it aloud, because history is a living thing and needs to be spoken by living people, not recorded on paper, which is dead.
Yeah.
And Trevor's grandfather, whoever it was, got into the fight because he tried to get them to write their history down. We also learn that some of them contain magical abilities, which is that will come into play. And basically, Trevor's like, no, everybody thinks you're the reason that this is happening. So you should probably just leave.
Yeah, they said that they needed to be out by sundown.
Correct.
Like during the
yes.
fight, right? Yeah.
Yes, they did. Get out of here by sundown. Because and we also learned that speakers normally are nomadic and they travel. But they decided to settle here because they felt that they could help people because obviously they're in a bad shape because everything is under siege. And Trevor says, you got to get out of here. And they're like, no, we're not leaving. We got to help the people. And then basically upstart young guy is like, he doesn't want to go because... Or, the old guy says one of the people is... one of our speakers is missing. Went to try to wake the sleeping soldier, which is a big thing that they talk about.
Yeah.
There's a sleeping soldier supposedly beneath the city who is like a savior, a messiah, who's going to protect them all from Dracula's minions. And you even heard some people in the town saying, like, we think the speakers are keeping the sleeping soldier at bay. It's their fault. If we get rid of them, then he'll come back and fight for us. And we find that one of them went to go try to get him and never came back. And then they're like, we don't want to leave. We like to bury our dead. And then basically they come to the agreement that if Trevor goes and retrieves the body of this speaker, then they'll leave. And then upstart young guy's like, it's his grandchild. And then, like, Trevor's like, yeah, whatever, alright, I'll be right back. Stay here, don't go outside. And he goes off to find this, like, temple, which is under a graveyard, like in a mausoleum.
It's a
Catacomb. Yeah. So, we see him, he works...
Which is popular.
Yes, in time-wise and in Castlevania. So he heads down, like, a weird chute. Like, was kind of random. Like, there's a long, like, slide that he goes down.
I'm trying to remember where it was.
He heard, like, whistling behind, like, a statue. And he, like, climbed up behind, like, the wind whistling. And he slides down this slide. And then he's just, like, he lights a torch. And he's walking through. And I think he's walking through. And at this point, we see some of these, like, incandescent lights start lighting up, I think.
Yep.
And then
Castlevania style.
And then he falls through a floor. Like, he steps on a false floor.
This is common.
And he falls through, and then he stops himself, and he's like, still got it, I'm so smooth. And then that floor falls away, and then he falls on his face. And he gets up, and he starts, like, looking around at stuff. And I'll let you take it from here. I've been talking for a while.
I'm not the best at remembering, so I might not remember.
That's okay. We can
correctly. I think this is the chamber where he starts to see all of the statues, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so there's just like statues on the floor. They've clearly crumbled and like heads have fallen off and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like knight statues. Yeah, anyway, so he continues on, and he finds a statue of one of the speakers.
Yeah, with the hood up and like...
Yeah. You almost look like you're dabbing there.
Yeah.
So anyways, he's just like, well, I guess I gotta carry this back. And he looks very upset by this. One of the few times he's showing any emotion. And I think that is it the ground that starts to shake?
Yes, and I will say the statue. I'll wait and then I'll go back. So go ahead. Yes, the ground starts to shake.
The ground starts to shake, and he kind of realizes it's gonna be a boss monster.
Yes.
And out comes this big giant, like Iliad style giant Cyclops, and like I'm lost.
That's right. And it shoots. It's a true Castlevania Cyclops in that it doesn't look at you. Its eye shoots a beam of energy, and he like jumps away and like rolls away to get away from the thing. And he makes a comment about like it's right out of the family bestiary. So like this is where we start to like, oh, he knows because he's a Belmont. And he does allude to before that he's fought vampires. So he like throws his short sword and he hits it in the chest, and he like runs behind a thing, and he's like, die already, why can't you just realize that you're dead? And then like I thought it was really cool because it shine like and then he starts moving and it shines its like eye beam, and it hits part of his cloak, and his cloak turns to stone, and he like breaks it, and then he moves out because he doesn't have his sword anymore. So he, first time we see it in against a monster, the whip comes out, and he throws it around the sword and wraps it around the handle and yanks the sword free. And then I thought it was a pretty cool move. He whips with the sword attached to the end of the whip and hits the monster again. And then he like whips back and like whips, like throws, like jumps off of the statue. I guess I should. Spoiler. Jumps off the statue. Yeah, and like kicks the or I think he gets hit. And then another Easter egg, he whips out and he hits one of the lights and breaks the lights with his whip. And I was like, oh shit. I'm like waiting for a heart to fall on the ground for him to like pick up from inside the lamp that he just whipped. But he kicks the sword end over end into the Cyclops' eye. And then the Cyclops drops down to the ground dead. And at which point the statue starts to tip and he catches the statue. And then he stands it back up, and it starts to de-petrify. I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, so, turns out that this grandchild that is now coming out of this statue, or, not really, like, unbecoming the statue, I suppose, is not a grandson like he previously thought. It is a granddaughter. And they have a short sort of introduction to each other, where she's obviously sassy and he's sassy, and she asks, did you, like, climb on top of me?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, a bit.
He's like, yeah, a bit. And so she introduces herself as Saifa Belnades, and this is the part where the rest of the statues start unbecoming, and it's just these headless knights and stuff, and so they just start bleeding again, and she's just like, that's gross.
She does try to convince him that he needs to keep going further to find the sleeping soldier, and he's like, there is no sleeping soldier, we're getting out of here. And she's like, you're a Belmont, you're a monster, and she's like, we're leaving. End of story. Yeah,
he was trying to convince her that the idea of the sleeping soldier was just a trap, so that for this beast could feed off of them and stuff, that sort of thing, or that it was just a trap placed here by someone else who was having a lot of fun from it or something, you know?
And he did say, I just want to jump in before I forget, that the Cyclops turns you to stone, but you're still alive, and you're stuck in your own body, and it feeds off of the fear of you being trapped in your own body, which I thought was crazy cool. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. Like, terrifying, but awesome.
Wouldn't want to be in the situation, but it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So right, this is probably a trap, somebody's rolling over in their grave, like, laughing, and then he takes her back to, he does, like, the typical dramatic, he opens the door, and then moves out of the way, and she's behind him, and then she runs in to, like, hug her grandfather, and happy reunion, everything's good, and then he's like, alright, I got her, time to get out of the city, it's almost sundown. You said you would leave if I got her. He's like, I'm going with you. Yeah, let's get out of here. And then he steps out, and then he gets a knife right below his back, and then all of the priests are there being jerks. And then I think they said, like, the bishop wants to see you. I can't remember where the episode cuts.
I
think it's later.
Yeah, I think it's later.
So he's like, the bishop wants to see you, and he doesn't want to fight these guys. And he asks the one guy, like, the guy's like, he asks like one of the guys, like, how's your hand, or something like that, or like, you know, one of the guys from before. And then they basically escort him to the church, where
not without a fight, because he's just like, I'm excommunicated, and then he's like, well, he's calling you, so you better come. And it's like, but I'm excommunicated. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
And he's like, we'll make a special exception for you.
He's like, but if I catch on burst into flames when I was set inside the church, it's your fault, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
being general, all around sassy.
As per his character, and he makes his way into the church, and then he meets everybody's favorite bishop, who basically starts telling him. Also, we did hear from Trevor is informed that the reason the church is doing they're hating the church is that they burnt Dracula's wife at the stake. He learned of that from the speakers. That's important.
Yeah.
So then he goes into the church, and he has a monologue back and forth with the bishop, who basically says, like, leave. I want you out of the city. And you can go, and that's fine. And then he basically goes on his tyrannical, insane, conversation about how I'm going to kill these speakers. They need to die before the beasts come and will be cleansed, and they won't come back. Completely ignores that, the whole burning Lisa at the stake thing. Talks briefly about the Archbishop and how he wasn't, as devout as him, so that's why he died. How he was there, but then he came here. He didn't stay there for when the attacks happened. He came here. And then basically...
And it sounds like he came back there not on his own terms, too. Like, he was sent there.
Yeah. And then, basically...
Which is, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Which is, you can see that he's harboring some resentment for the Archbishop and stuff. Because of that.
Yeah. And then I think that, essentially, that whole scene happens, and he tells him, okay, get out. I don't want to see you anymore. And then Trevor leaves, basically, and heads back to go where the speakers are, back to their place. He basically tells them, they're coming for you. You're leaving right now. Yeah. And basically takes them to, I think, that's he takes. The priests show up and they open the door, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing? Where are they? We're gonna kill you." And I think that's where the episode cuts, before the fight scene with them. So what do you think about episode 2?
I think that it was a lot better than episode 1.
Agreed.
Despite the fact that I feel like the characters were a little more one-dimensional in this episode.
Okay.
They were fleshed out in the first episode a lot more.
Well, how so? Which characters were one-dimensional?
I feel like this is the point where, by the end of the episode, Trevor starts to get a little one-note again.
Okay.
And again, the Seekers are only there to be sort of exposition.
Sure.
And a lot of the episode focuses more on, the villagers and stuff, too.
First introduction to Sypha. What are your thoughts?
Sypha's pretty cool. The beer thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's... Oh, yeah, that's right. He basically... Trevor is a drunk, and he's like, I want to get some beer, so I'll be back. And that's when he runs into the priests. And she's like, we don't have any... She said I could pee in a cup and tell him it's beer. Something like that. Yeah.
It was so sassy, but so good.
And yeah, it was good, because I always went with Belnades, so now that it's Belnades, I know that. Also, it's weird that she has, an accent and nobody else does.
Lisa had an accent.
I guess, yeah, but, hers is a very heavy, Romanian-style accent. But, the villagers don't have it, her grandfather doesn't have it, Trevor doesn't have it.
Yeah.
It's fine, she's exotic. Oh, sure.
Yes.
So that's fine. I mean, I like it. I think it worked well. It caught me a little off guard that nobody else really has that accent.
Yeah. But they are nomadic. Maybe
that's true.
Raised in a different area. So.
Good point. Yeah, and then we know that and Trevor took off his cloak. First time we see that, we see the full size Belmont family crest on his back. And basically all the enemies fanned in to surround him.
I really like that cloak, though.
Yeah, super cool. And it has like the weird tatters at the bottom. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So we pick up episode 3 in that fight scene, and it goes south for those guys real quick. And he like pulls out a bunch of stakes and throws them and hits them all in the hand, so they all drop their weapons.
Yeah.
And he like tackles the main priest out the door, pulling a rope that collapses the house in on all of the other guys. And
very
like
creative.
Hits this guy to the ground, and I'm pretty sure he dies. The priest that he hits, and then he slashes out with his whip to grab this villager. And again, a little bit of like an Easter egg where he pulls a hand axe over and catches an axe.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, who's got a pocket watch? Like, when's that coming? And then he throws it on like a crazy weird boomerang arc, which makes no sense. And it hits.
Well, I mean, depending on the Castlevania you play, because Lament of Innocence actually has it that way.
I guess that's true. It does arc. It doesn't really arc upward like a typical axe would. It goes more like sideways, and it hits into this perfectly placed rope that was holding a crucifix that then falls. Okay, fine. It was cool. And then
it's become incredibly convenient from this episode on.
Yeah, and then he like runs off, and now it's like the mob is chasing him, and we get some really cool like fight scenes between him and the priests. There's archer priests and polearm priests, and he's fighting them, and then we meet one-eyed bald monk, where he fights him and then uses him as a human shield, and his other eye gets put out by an arrow.
Yeah. Okay. So a part that bothered me there.
Mm-hmm.
He has incredible depth perception to have just lost his eye.
Yeah. Well, he's a bald monk-like guy, so I feel like he could probably fight blindfolded, I guess. He's like, he gives me that vibe, like that type of guy. But you're right. There's no way he'd be as good with his blade. And then, like, Trevor fights the guy, and it's a cool fight. It's a cool, like, street fight. He takes one of the spears from one of the enemies and throws it at one of the archers, which then again, in a typical like goofy anime style, hits the top archer, who then lets his arrow go and kills the other archer.
Yeah, very convenient.
Yeah, alright, sure. And then he...
It's cool. It's very Belmont.
Yeah, no, and
at the same time.
And I liked it. It was just, if you're a very analytical eye, it's very over the top.
It's cheesy.
Yeah. And then he like is running around leading the townspeople like away, and then I believe that I'm getting a little fuzzy at this point, so I'll let you take over.
Oh, I'm completely fuzzy on this episode. I'm just gonna let you know.
You're killing me here. So he leads most of the villagers away, and then I believe this is when the Dracula's horde, because the sun begins to set.
Oh yeah.
And then Dracula's horde begins to show up.
Yeah, and that's all halted. And that's when he starts to get the villagers together and telling them exactly what has been going on before the enemies attack, right?
Yeah, because he says because he meets Bearded Priest, who's like, I'm gonna kill you, and he goes on this tirade about how like it's the church's fault. How many what priests do you know that carry a blade? And, like, at that point, not when the church was going to assault him with arrows and pikes and stuff earlier in the episode, now they all come to the realization like that, oh shit, priests don't carry knives, that's weird. And then this, like, it's this revelation to them that this is all happening. And basically, in a very Caesar brutal moment, the townspeople just murder this guy.
Yeah, like, it was very kind of unprompted. Like, they were just willing to believe this guy they were earlier trying to, kill.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good speech. Like, he made good points. But, like, I don't feel like, unless they're that much of sheeple, where, like, somebody makes a good point and they, like, 180 on him.
He didn't back with evidence, is the problem.
And then they murder him, the priest. And then I think the forces of darkness start to show up. And now, like, people they're, like, freaking out, what do we do? And that's when Trevor is starting to be like, all right, we need to, like, you, he starts, like, basically showing a very tactical mind. And I think, I forget if at some point, because he didn't show, I don't think we knew that Sypha had powers yet at this, or we did, because she, like, saved him somehow.
Into episode 4.
Are we? Am I jumping ahead? I don't know. I'm going to leave it to you. You take it away, then.
Like, I think that's pretty much how the episode ends, that the Horde is, like, approaching, right?
I think you're probably right, because I think it starts with the Bishop, episode 4, I think, where the creatures show up in the church, and then there's one, like, weird-looking, like, wolf thing, and I couldn't really correlate that to an existing Castlevania monster.
Like a warg?
Yeah, it's like it has, the one that talks and it has the white eyes and, like, the spikes and stuff. It didn't really jump out to me as a Castlevania. I mean, maybe I'm just drawing a blank, though.
Yeah, I think they're making up some creatures as they go, too.
Which is fine,
like, maybe putting them together,
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I kind of related it to a warg.
Okay.
In a sense.
Alright.
It's like a warg and a lesser demon, I think.
Okay. But yeah, this creature can speak, unlike the kind of bat ones, which don't seem to be able to talk. And it basically does a little conversation with the bishop, and the bishop's like, "You don't belong here. I'm the man of God. Like, you can't enter God's house." And they're like, newsflash, yes we can. And
it's like, God's not here.
Yeah, and then basically he's trying to do, like, that typical, again, fanatical priest thing where, like, I'll be protected, I'm, a priest, and then they just kill him. He just dies.
Yeah, like, they go on, the demons, they talk about how they actually love him, because he's the reason they were allowed to be in this world.
Yes.
That they were summoned.
Yep, that's true.
And then they're just like, we love you so much, we're gonna eat you.
Yeah.
Like, be a part of us. That's a very, I don't know if they were trying to allude to this, but that's a very, Dracula sort of thinking.
Sure.
In the novel Dracula.
Yes. Bram Stoker's.
You're supposed to, eat the things that you want to, gain the powers of. So if you were able to bring demons into the world, they want to eat you, of course. Because you had that power. You are full of power and they want that. So...
Yeah, and then it's like, it was sort of bittersweet to me. Like, obviously you want this guy to die because he's a jerk.
Yeah, I want him to suffer a bit more.
Yeah, but, like, I also, like, I recognize that he was a very good villain, and I would have liked to have seen more of him because I hate him so much. Like, to plague them a little bit more. I always dislike whenever you, like, start to build up a really good villain in a series or a show or a game, and then, like, it's gratifying that you get rid of them, but it's less gratifying than it could have been. Like, if this guy was, like, a multi-season villain that eventually gets beaten.
Yeah, it's kind of like reading a story, and then getting to the end, and then what else do you do from there, right?
Right.
Like, you want to see more of it, so you want to see more of this villain.
Correct.
So.
And I also think it would have been fitting for Dracula to kill himself, to kill this guy, and I'm sure it would have been in the most grandiose fashion, because it's Dracula. And I thought that would have been fitting, but it also is sort of less fitting. Like, it's cooler that he didn't get to do it, because that could make him more angry and, like, fuel him even further.
Or, like, he wasn't even worth that much, that he wasn't going to go kill him himself.
Also true. Oh, you know what? That made me think of something else that we forgot from a couple episodes back. The sleeping soldier, Trevor said the lighting and everything in that is reminiscent of stuff that from his grandfather's journal of what Dracula's castle is. So he was saying that whatever's under the city is Dracula's, not like your Messiah. So just to establish that, because that will come up. So then, we'll fast forward. Now, Trevor is in the town, like, then there's monsters, and he's fighting the monsters with the whip and his short sword. And, like, I think if I recall, like, at one point he's almost gonna get, like, attacked, or, like, he can't save himself, and then that monster gets destroyed. And that's when we learn that Sypha has the powers. that she's going to stay behind and help him, and that she has magic.
Yeah. It was alluded to that the Seekers sometimes have dark powers. Well, dark powers.
Sure.
Which are actually just magical powers. But it was kind of downplayed, so when you get to see her do the magic in this episode, it's kind of like still new.
Right, and I mean, for those of us that are Castlevania fans, you knew this was coming. If you're a new watcher, you're like, what? Cool. And they stay very true to the fact that she has fire, ice, and, like, wind magic. Like, that's all she uses, and I thought that was really cool. And then basically they're fighting, and that's when he starts to talk to the townspeople. And he's like, pikemen, here, hold it like this. And he's like, I need a priest, one that was ordained in a church. And then, like, a guy stops, like, goes, go to the church, get a bunch of water. I take it you know what to do with water.
Mm-hmm.
And then he looks like somebody else. He's like, salt, all the salt you can find. And then he says, everyone salt your blades, salt kills demons.
Yeah, this is the sub-weapon episode.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then he basically, like, they're starting to come towards this area, and he tells Sypha, I want to box him in, so we can bottleneck him. And she said, well, ice work, and he said it's better than fire. And then they get close, and she, like, ice walls, so they're in a corridor. And then he starts directing the pikemen to, like, these guys down.
He creates a choke point.
Yeah, first rank, pikes down. Second, they're jumping, pikes up. And when they're stuck on the pikes, swordsmen come in and kill them. And then you see the salted blades defeat them.
Kind of explode a bit and stuff.
Yeah, it's a very explosive finish. You see him throw the water, and it is holy water. We find out that the priest is, he did bless the water.
He's, like, surprised that worked.
And then we see him again, him whipping stuff, and that's when he explains that the whip is consecrated and does...
It's like, oh yeah, the whip is holy.
And I feel like he uses his short sword more often than not up to that point, and it's like, the whip is way better, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it was, he said it like it was afterthought. He was just like, oh yeah, the whip is holy.
Yeah, I think he says that it does, like, it works against vampires and demons. And then we see, like, then we're getting, like, the cool fight scenes of the townsfolk fighting the demons. And there's the cool one where he throws the holy water and it hits, and Sypha freezes the holy water, like, in, like, a damage attack as, like, ice holy water. Really, really good scenes, really cool animation. I'm a fan of that. We start to see the battle start to go, and the townsfolk are starting to get empowered, like, hey, maybe we can do this, with the proper direction. This was
a very strong episode.
Yeah, and we go out on a strong note, obviously.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, this is part where I'm going to get a little fuzzy, I don't remember how Sypha and Trevor end up, like, underground.
Okay, so that explosion of the ice and everything, after they kill the monster,
the
ground starts to collapse, but it only takes them.
Yes, nobody else.
Like, all the other villagers just conveniently not in the range of this entirely huge collapse in the square.
And then... Go ahead, keep going.
They just keep falling for, like, ever, and every time they're on a platform, the platform is just like, nope, I'm actually rusted.
Yes.
And his whip is always just as long as he needs it to be.
Yeah, there's definitely... And then it's a very Castlevania moment where they're hopping around from platform to... treacherous platform to platform. There's gears, and they're moving all around. And Sypha uses her wind magic to, like, double jump. And then, like, there's one where Trevor, like, it is way too long. Like, he's, like, across a chasm. And, like, this whip, there's no way. And then, like, they swing and they're moving along. And I'm a little pissed that there were no flying Medusa heads to just fuck them up as they're trying to jump across some platforms to just hit them and knock them down and ruin your day. And make you quit playing for hours.
He needs to be stoned again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically, they're moving around, jumping, and then they eventually fall, I think, to the bottom, basically, or they get to a platform.
Yeah,
and
they fall way too far to like survive without any injuries, but they do it anyway.
she does like a couple of cool things where she like does cast like on some of them she casts some spells to like make some platforms.
Yeah, that one was cool. Like she used the wind resistance to slow them down a bit, and then at the end she was just like, nah.
Yeah.
Let me just fall the rest of the way. I'm tired of this.
And then yeah, right. And then we see a coffin with like blood things on the side, and they start moving towards it. And Trevor has a very knowing kind of, you get the feeling that he knows what's going on. She's like, it's the sleeping soldier. And then like the coffin lid like, and then like, okay, it's Alucard, but we don't know who he is yet technically. And then there's a very big fight about between Trevor and Sypha that this is the Messiah, the sleeping soldier, and he's like, this isn't your Messiah, this is a vampire. Like, how was your...
This is probably Dracula.
Yeah, he's like, your Messiah lives under the city in a stone coffin and has fangs, like, and basically, there's a... They kind of like have some banter, and basically they get into, he's like, you're a Belmont and you're gonna take on, he's like, oh, you're Dracula, and he thinks the assumption is that he is Dracula, and that he's going to he says like, well, you're gonna you think you can defeat Dracula, show me. And they get into like an awesome fight, Trevor versus Alucard, and there's like you know,
this is canonical too, so, and
like Alucard's sword is like huge. It's way long, and I don't remember what sword it's supposed to be, but it's real long.
It's the Alucard sword.
I guess it would make the most sense.
For sure. Like I'm assuming because he's got his whole dark metamorphosis thing, but the fact that he's not calling it out is a sort of thing that he does with the Alucard sword. So
that's fair.
Nerd out right there.
Yeah, no, all right. So that's good point. And it is a great fight. You see, you know, there's teleportation. That's kind of how it all starts.
Sass.
What? And sass, yes.
Sass.
And I will say, like, I was a huge fan of, like, some of Trevor's moves that he did were really cool. Where, like, he, like, whipped and, like, had his hand, like, on the whip to, like, shorten the length of it to, like, snap and hit Alucard. And it is cool because you see the wounds, like, hitting Alucard, like, on his body as they're moving. Like, there's holes and slashes. And he has a big, long gash across his chest. We should say that.
Yeah.
They see him for the first time, a big gash. And then eventually Trevor gets disarmed from the whip, and then it's sword v sword for a little while. And, you know, clearly Trevor's struggling because he doesn't have the strength, I don't think, to handle fighting a vampire. And it's like toe-to-toe for a while, and then basically Alucard trips him up and is, like, going over top of him to, like, go to eat him, and then, like, he stopped because... or did I miss something?
He broke the sword, by the way.
Oh, he did. You're right. He cut the...
Yeah.
Good point. I forgot.
Alucard, his sword is a lot stronger. It's forged a lot better, obviously.
Clearly.
Because royalty, among royalty. Anyways, especially with alchemical laboratories, you know?
Sure.
It's a very strong sort of fantasy thing with swords and alchemical stuff. But so he goes towards the hilt of Trevor's sword, and it just breaks, like clean break, and it's just like, well, this battle's gone. Mm-hmm. And so that's when he goes over the top of him, with the sword and everything.
And he's ready to bite Trevor. It looks like that's what's gonna happen, and then we get that cool moment where like Trevor like has a stake out like underneath him, like pointed at Alucard's heart, and it's basically like, you can try to rip my throat out, but I'm gonna stake you. And then he's like, even if you stake me, I'm still gonna rip your throat out. And then Trevor's like, you don't get it, I don't care. So, and then Alucard's like, good, I respect your sass. And he like gets up and then teleports his sword into his sheath.
Well, no, actually, Sypha.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Good point. You take that. I forgot about that.
I forget exactly what she said.
She's basically...
She was just like, You might survive the stake,
Yeah.
but you're not going to survive me.
Yes, and she's got her like little fireball thing between
Yeah.
her fingers.
Yeah.
And that's when she's
So
starting to
it's
come to the realization he's not the Messiah.
Yeah, and that sort of scene also shows that she's starting to trust Trevor a lot more. Because she defends him there. Like specifically mentions that she's defending him. So
Yes. Yeah, and then like Alucard's like, "Oh, cool, we're good," and like he's like, and then they do go into
he
a point.
heals his wounds.
Yeah, like at that point immediately, like he could. It's like he could have, but it looks cooler if he does it like. Yeah, you know. And then he says they do go into a point about how he's not the Messiah. He hasn't been here forever. He's just been here for a year. And he's been here for a year healing the wounds that his father dealt to him. And that also he tells him that he's Alucard, not Dracula.
And
he's
he's
his son.
becoming easy instead of sassy. So.
Correct. And then he does talk about... Does he talk about a prophecy? Is there a prophecy? Maybe I made that up.
Okay, so the Seekers... It was mentioned earlier that the Seeker's knowledge comes from different sources, and it's not always from the past. Sometimes it's from the future.
That's right.
And so he talks about how the Seekers were given this future prophecy of him.
That's right.
Or something like that.
Yeah. And basically everybody... It's like that cool, like, badass where, like... Whew, coat comes on, and like we're gonna need all the help we can get to beat Dracula, and like they slow-mo walk out, the three of them together, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. I don't think we missed anything else. So any thoughts on episode 4? Probably the strongest episode, I'd say.
Strongest episode. If it continues like that, I will definitely watch it, because that was a really fun episode.
Yeah.
I feel like it was pretty well written. You have to go over a hurdle of like starting out slow on a lot of things, you know. And I think it suffered from that, but by the end, it's actually worth it. So.
Yeah, I think, but this is another thing that I had said. It's hard to really like bore people and make it drag on and not enjoyable when it's only 4 25-minute episodes. Like there's only so much. There's only so much you can pack into that time. So I feel like everything you're doing, you have to really vet it out and cut the fat from all that stuff, because you only have limited time. So you've really got to pack it with energy and action and good writing. So yeah, I think clearly, like I said, the best episode. A lot of people, myself, yourself included. Where's Grant?
Actually, I'm okay with like the where like. Grant's not there yet.
I'm also okay if
we haven't gotten into the castle.
I'm also okay if we don't include Grant, to be completely honest. When you,
I mean, I think they'll get to it. Like Sypha, like Grant, you can canonically in the game, you can get Grant before you get Sypha.
Sure.
Sypha is in the castle. Grant is also in the castle. We haven't even gotten to the castle yet.
Also true. I just feel like when you think about and when you think about their powers. Again, this is a show, so it's going to be different. But you think about their powers and how they translate to an action-based show. Grant's powers are less interesting, in my mind. You know what I mean?
He's gonna be the grappling hook.
Yeah, and he's like a pirate dude, and he can climb on walls and drop knives.
Yeah.
Like,
I think. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like if you didn't include him, you're gonna piss people off, and if they're staying true to the story, they will. But like, the 3 characters that you do have are very unique, and they're diverse, and they have cool abilities and cool stuff for them. So, like, if that's a strategic decision you have to make, I'm okay. Like, I think that's the one. That's the one you make.
So the thing is, like, I think that they're going to wait till the castle to put Grant in. Probably somewhere early next season, or later, because you got to get to know the characters first that you already have. But Grant was transformed into a demon. He became a boss, and he was a protector of the castle. So I think that once we get to the castle, we'll see him, and we'll have this really amazing boss fight where it's just like, oh yeah, this wasn't a demon all along. This was a person, and now they're gonna join us. And I think that could be really cool if they handle it correctly.
Okay, I can agree with that. Well, we can say right now we know for a fact Castlevania 2, or Season 2 has been approved, and it's been approved for 8 episodes.
Yep.
So we know that it's coming back. Like I said, people have their little nitpicks and their gripes here and there, but overall, everything I've read is the response is extremely positive. Everybody seems to be a big fan, and I think that's why on day 1 they cleared it for Season 2. Like,
yeah,
we knew before the day it launched that we were going to have a second season.
I am so excited for the influx of Castlevania fans that there are going to be.
So many.
Okay, so I don't want people to play gatekeeper about it. Like, as a longtime Castlevania fan, renewing interest in this and getting more merchandise out there, please, new people, go like it. Like the show. If you like the show, go play the games.
Yeah, you know? I can get what you're saying though, where people are going to be like, oh, I liked this before Castlevania the Netflix series. You're not a real fan because you never played the games.
Yeah, like.
So what? Let them, like you said, let this inspire people to play the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, more merchandise for sure. And cosplay will also be a thing now, more cosplay.
I'm so excited for like all the cosplay I'm gonna see from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. I mean, we're pretty much at a spot now where there are no new Castlevania games anymore.
That's probably for the best.
I would agree.
With how they've been handling them.
True. We will have Bloodstained coming out sometime. Eventually, yeah, I know. So that is kind of the spiritual successor, obviously, to Castlevania. But, you know, it's a good thing. Renewed interest, bringing new people into any franchise, really, of anything that you like, is never a bad thing. People need to, like you said, stop playing gatekeeper, spread the love, let other people enjoy it. And then, like, when you meet new people that are like, I love the Castlevania Netflix series, you can be like, hey, do you know about the games? Let me show you. Like... Yeah,
I'm excited about showing people. Don't get angry, you know?
I mean, I saw...
I feel like that's...
Absolutely.
I hope it's not...
I saw as a pop-up as, like, a game you should watch on Twitch in the bottom left-hand corner the day Castlevania came out. Is like, Castlevania Lords of Shadows was one of the recommended, like games to follow to watch. And, like, that's another thing. Like, now if you go and stream Symphony of the Night, like, you're probably going to get a lot of people more watching than you would have in the past because Castlevania is fresh in everyone's mind.
Yeah.
So... Yeah, I mean, we've been talking almost for 2 hours here. We've covered a lot of stuff. Obviously, we're very passionate about this. There's no, I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind. But we talked about everything pretty much. Is there anything else that you want to go over as far as the series goes as it stands currently, the Netflix series?
Important thing.
Yes.
Music.
Yes, oh my god, yes, you're absolutely right. I was very upset with the music.
Yeah, like, I can see where they, again, I'm going to use this word, like, a lot with this, where they alluded to some of the songs. Like, there was a direct reference to, like, strange blood relations in one of the songs. Mm-hmm. But overall, I didn't really notice the music, and that's one of the things I love about Castlevania.
Yes.
The music is always gorgeous, you know?
That is definitely a thing I have heard on multiple other reviews that I have watched. No vampire killer, no bloody tears. I mean, again,
the best. We got bloody tears.
We got
visual.
Yes, but like you said, obviously there are a million Castlevania tracks because there's been a million games, and the music is always spot on. At least for all of the non-Lords of Shadow games, I'll say. In my mind, because all of the 2D ones also have great music and remixes of classic versions. Like, I don't know how many canonical remixes of Vampire Killer and Bloody Tears you can find just in the games, not including fan remixes.
I wonder if they didn't get the rights to use the music,
which is poor for that's like, it sucks. That's really bad in my mind. But maybe with the success of this, they'll be able to get them for season 2.
Yeah, I really hope so.
Because, like, maybe we'll get it, like, because we're in the castle now, so maybe we'll get, like, music. Well, maybe when we get to the castle. You know what I mean?
Sinking old sanctuary.
But we'll, like, get that music, and maybe we'll get, like, them rolling up to the gate, and we'll get, like, the Castlevania 1, like, dun, 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 but, like, but it orchestrated as they're, like, looking up in the gate there in the front of the castle. That would be really cool. Like, little thing, like, even just a small, tiny cue of any of the music, and people are gonna lose it. But you're absolutely right. Biggest disappointment in the Castlevania Netflix series is no... Like, I'm okay. Remix any of the tracks to make them fit the tone of the show. Like, obviously, a chiptune 8-bit vampire killer doesn't fit the visual thematic of this, but an orchestrated version, a slowed down version, like even like a little riff during one of the fight scenes would have been cool.
Like accidentally opening a music box in the castle or something. And
yes,
like
any of those will make this series by and far even better for hardcore fans. But like if the new fans like that was a really cool song, what was that? And then like your mind is now open to the world that is Castlevania music.
Yeah. So important. So I was a little disappointed.
Agreed. All right, what else you got? Anything else you want to talk about the series before we wrap this up?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I mean, other than like, I hope that next season we get to see more wall chicken.
Yeah, obviously, if they don't put one wall chicken in somewhere, that's just like, like even if it's like they break open a wall and there's like a picture of like a chicken, like of a dinner,
or they break open a wall and it's the kitchen or dining room.
Yeah, something like that. Give us an allusion to wall chicken is key.
I want wall chicken.
And obviously, we like to see more iconic Castlevania monsters. You know, when they get to the castle.
Looking forward to bosses.
Yes, absolutely. Like Gorgon or. I mean, I think we're probably going to avoid things like Frankenstein's monster and a mummy. And I mean, I feel like they have to do a giant vampire bat that is a traditional bat at one point. Like, you just have to.
Oh, man. When do we meet Death?
Yeah, Death at some point. Werewolves are going to be a big one. Yeah.
Death is going to be, like, an important character. I hope they make him just as sassy as everyone else.
You bring up a good point. We may meet Death in Season 2. If they don't include Death, that's just it's not a Castlevania series. He's a major part.
Just wrong.
Yeah. And I don't know...
He's the reason...
Yeah, and I don't feel like we should get to Dracula in Season 2. We shouldn't even get close. I think that we need at least another third season before they actually make their way to Dracula. Because I don't know if this has like an end, like this has an end cap. You know what I mean? Like right now they wrote Season 1 and they know they got 8 episodes for Season 2. Obviously you don't want to see something get canceled and not be finished, but like we only know the story of Trevor, Sypha, Grant, and Alucard as Castlevania 3 the game. Really, we know of stuff that happens from their descendants, Simon and so on, and maybe that's the route they want to go. 100 years later, and now we're dealing with Simon Belmont, and then, you know, what a horrible night for a curse a year after that. I don't know, but I think I'd like to build up the castle and then time through the castle before we actually... I don't want to feel like 8 episodes to rush to get to the Dracula fight. I think we should give it some space.
Yeah.
Because if it does this could be... Yeah, that's also true.
So the pacing would be weird if you did that.
Yeah, I feel like we need to time it out. And like I said, I'm okay if the series with Trevor and Sypha and everybody eventually ends and we move on to other Belmonts. But I want them to get their due course before, and you know, you want to keep going down the line and deal with Christopher Belmont and all these other Belmonts. That's fine. And then, again, there's the option to go back and do a prequel to deal with the church excommunicating the Belmonts and that whole thing. A lot of room for future series, but, like, don't rush it to pack the entire castle and Dracula fight in 8 episodes. And give us some like a Dracula episode where we just get from his perspective. Like, that would be cool. Sorry, guys. There's a glitch in the connection. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what I was saying before, but...
Dracula episode.
Yes, give us a Dracula episode from his perspective. Like, coming to the realization that there is a Belmont alive, like... Or does he not even care? Like, we don't really know. We know that, like, his grandfather had notes of Dracula's castle. What does that mean? Like, how? Let us hear some of that. Or maybe give us a flashback episode in the current series, not a prequel. Something like that.
Yeah.
I would love to see... I mean, I think the fans, because we talked about it here, but the fans would love to see Dracula going from Vlad Tepes the Impaler Dracula to Castlevania Dracula. Like, that transition.
Yeah. Like, Matthias, even.
Yes, exactly. All of these, like, good... Give us that stuff. Like, give us that. Let us have that.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, your average fan or your casual fan who just watches the series won't know what led up to that. So, okay. I think we've probably beat a dead horse pretty good here. We've been talking for a while.
Yeah, it's throwing its intestines at us.
Yes, exactly. So, again, last, anything else you want to add? If not, we'll bring this to a close.
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you, Alucardalina, for coming out and doing this extensive review of me, for the Castlevania Netflix series.
No review of you.
Yes.
You are Castlevania.
Yes, I am.
What is a man?
Oh, miserable little pile of secrets, indeed. So thank you. Be sure to let us know in the comments below if you like this review. Again, I realize it's a little bit on the long side. And then be sure to check out the link in the description for Project Tyria to go check out Alu's stuff. I'll put her link to her Twitter in there as well, and her cosplay Facebook page too, so that you guys can go find her information and go check her out and give her likes. And
I cosplayed Joachim. So.
Yeah, we've got she's got a bunch of stuff for you to check out. So and be sure to leave comments in the description, in the comment box below about what you thought about our review, and give us your opinions. What do you think about Castlevania the series? What do you think about our opinions of Castlevania the series? We want to know, because this is stuff that we're very passionate about. We want to know what you guys think, and what your thoughts. Yeah, and what are your guys' thoughts on season 2? What do you think is going to happen there? So. Alright guys, thank you very much, and we'll see you on Castlevania Season 2 review, and whenever that comes out.